Coach. So we talked about some of the best players that you've coached, on the teams that you've led. So who are some of the best players that you coached against in your career here in the Charlotte metro area?
Well, going back years ago, when I was at Geringer, I remember a kid named Richie Melkor that was at West Charlotte. Tremendous player. I think one night he rushed for 270 yards against us.
Wow.
So Richie Melkor, Venturi Norris back in the day at West Charlotte. He was a great player and difficult to stop. Then moving on, you got Omar Gaither, who was at Myers Park, that wound up playing in the NFL. Also, you got Lance Johnson, who was a big lineman over there at Myers Park. But then, you have Chris Leak, who set all the national scoring and passing records. He was a great player, won the national championship at Florida. And then Joe Cox was a great quarterback at Independence. And then, of course, Mohamed Massaquoi and Hakim Nix. That was very unfair to have to play against both of those guys at the same time. And I remember there was a receiver at Maurice Staley. At West Charlotte. I went to Tennessee, and searching through my memory bank, those are some of the great players throughout the city over the years that we went against. And then there's a number of players at Mallard Creek that went on, and the one that's playing for the Steelers now, that was
Jaylen Samuels.
Yeah, Jaylen Samuels. He's got to be up there. I mean, what a to go on. And then the kicker from East Meck, Reed.
Jeff Reed.
Jeff Reed. Jeff Reed
played at the Steelers.
Kicked for the Steelers for a number of years. So we've certainly had our share of talent here in Charlotte over the years, and looks like it's still going strong with the kids that are coming up. It's great.
I just want to go back on that Independence team. When they had Massaquoi and they had Hakim Nix at tight end, they would go, doubles, 2 receivers on each side, then put Nix at tight end and go empty. That was the toughest thing that I remember, trying to, kind of coach against, when I was at Harding back in the day.
Well, that was one
crazy.
Year that Tommy came up with that idea to go to 2 tight ends empty and run Darryl McFadden on counter. That certainly caught us in a bind, and we had to make adjustments after that because we had it schemed pretty good to where we felt like we could overload to their strong side, and we did that. But then he came up with that plan to go to 2 tight ends, and they really dominated us in a game that year when we had played in the playoffs, when we had played them pretty close during the regular season. And I'll never forget, we had a game over there at Independence when we had a chance to win the game at the end. It was a close game, and they were punting on 4th down with just a couple minutes to go in the game, and we were going to go punt block, and they ran a fake punt to Hakim Nix, and we had him in the backfield, but he broke the tackle and ran it down to about our 3-yard line and kind of sealed the deal for him. But it was just a tremendous athletic play by Hakim Nix because we had him nailed, but he broke away and ran it down to about our 3-yard line, and they scored a play later. And so he was a great one.
Yeah, and bringing that up, Coach, let me ask you, games that you feel like, that you had in the grasp but kind of got away. You have any of those, throughout your career that you felt like that you had and they just kind of got away from you and you just, missed the chance to really do something big?
Oh, yeah. Well, not only, thinking back to my, I can tell you one game that still haunts me at Catawba. We, one game we were ahead of Gardner Webb, 31-21, with a minute and a half to go in the game.
Yeah.
And we were playing great. They had a great team, and they scored. They scored a 2-point play. they kicked the onside kick right to our starting tight end. It went right through his hands, and they recovered it. And they didn't get a first down, but they hit a 54-yard field goal with like 30 seconds left and beat us 32-31.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, that was 10-point swing in the last minute and 10 seconds of a game.
Yeah.
So, yes, you know, I know one year at Michigan Tech, we beat Southwest State, Minnesota one year 64-7.
Wow.
And the next year we went down and played them at Southwest Minnesota State, and we were a better team, but we just we didn't have the right mental attitude, and they wound up beating us, and you could see it coming. And so, yes, I learned early in my career that you know, you can't ever take anything for granted, and so, you know, I kind of always had the idea that when you got ahead, you were never ahead by enough. And, you know, people accuse you of running up the score, but, you know, the bottom line is you're probably going to get accused of that anyway. So score and play to win, and that's the name of the game. So
good stuff, man. Good stuff. All right, Coach. So, you know, throughout your career, you know, we know football has changed a lot. We've gone from a lot of teams running run first type schemes and then more wide open stuff later on and what we see now. So how has it changed here locally in the Charlotte metro area, in your opinion?
Yeah, well, when I first came to Geringer in 1983 season, you know, we had the Southwestern 4A, which was 10 teams.
Yeah.
And it was a very balanced league. You know, we in '84 made it to the semifinals of the state. We lost to Greensboro Page 21-7. So we had a great team.
Yeah.
But that year in the conference, I mean, we beat North Mech 7-0. We beat West Mech 23-13. We beat West Charlotte 31-29.
Wow.
If you're getting the picture, our biggest win of the year, I think we beat Myers Park 29-0, and we beat East Mech 28-0. But you didn't have any 70-0 games. You didn't have any games where you just knew on Monday that you were going to go out there and win. And the balance was, there was a lot of balance. You were going to play 10 games, and all 10 opponents were going to be tough. Now, you know, you have all of these blowout games, and kids go to, you know, when a school gets down, it's hard to recover because the kids don't want to play there. They don't want to go there. And so that, I'd say, is one of the big changes. You know, and then the playoffs have expanded. And so now, I mean, you have so many teams in the playoffs, like the first round of the playoffs for a good team, a top team, is not really a challenge. You know, most of the time, those games are going to be blowouts. And, you know, so that's a difference. You know, back in those days when you got in the playoffs, you pretty much had to win the conference to get in the playoffs, and then you were going to play somebody that had won their conference. So you were going to be right off the bat tested. The other big change, is people don't realize, is, you know, back in those days, we didn't play overtime. So you ended the games in ties. I think the first year we started playing overtime was 1984. And our first overtime game, I was at Geringer, and we played Harding with Tommy Knott, and we went in, we played them in overtime the first time. And of course, then later on, within the next few years, I remember we had a game against East Mech when I was at South. It was 6 overtimes, and then when I was at Butler, we played Independence in 7 overtimes.
I remember that.
So, you know, you have many games where 4 or 5 overtimes, and you know, but I think the overtime is good. And you know, people criticize the way the high schools do it. I kind of like the way the high schools do it in comparison to the other forms. But they all have their advantages. So, but the high school way is fine.
Absolutely. That's some great stuff, Coach. I was not aware of that overtime deal.
Yeah,
that's great.
I started that in '84.
Wow. So, you know, in researching, you know, for this interview, I noticed you got 5 DVDs available on I think it's Coach's Choice.
Yes, sir. Coach's Choice.
Talking about different schemes, different ways to, you know, scheme against different things.
Right.
So in your opinion, what are the keys to coaching a successful defense overall?
I think you have to have a good scheme that's complex but simple for your players. Confusing for the offense but simple for you. I think you have to be committed, and the number one thing is to be aggressive on defense. I am not a read and react coach. I don't believe in sitting in one scheme I believe in attacking the offense, particularly on first down. I think you have to be aggressive. Our defenses were always designed to be aggressive up front. I think the biggest thing as an offensive coach that you hate is penetration. So, I mean, if that's what you hate on offense, then that's what you should try to create on defense. And, everyone, so I think an aggressive, fast defense, I think that team pursuit is a big thing. I mean, I think your players have to really buy into that. I often told our players, I'd rather have you line up wrong and hustle than line up right and loaf.
There you
go. You know, I mean, because hustle makes up for a lot of mistakes.
That's right.
And so I would say being aggressive, being sound, not giving up the big play. Those are keys to a great defense. And, that's like I've heard many quotes that, George Patton said, nobody ever won a war sitting in their foxhole. And, you've got to attack. You have to attack. And as a defensive team, I think being aggressive is a big thing.
Well said, Coach. Well said. Love it. We'll move it forward into what's going on now in the world. We've got a lot of racial issues. We've got a lot of social injustice going on. If you were a head coach now, how would you address first-year players and second-year coaches about, the different issues that are going on?
Yeah, well, I think the biggest thing that creates a great team loves each other. And love is an important characteristic to have on your team. You have to love your teammates above yourself. You have to be willing to sacrifice for your teammates. You have to be committed to your teammates. You have to love your teammates. And that's a word that doesn't get thrown around a lot in coaching. But whenever you watch a team win a championship and they interview the players afterwards and the coaches, invariably those players talk about how they love their teammates. And when you have love in your heart, it's hard to have hate in your heart. And so that's the biggest thing that I would say is as a team, we have to love each other. And the Apostle Paul, he had the greatest definition of love ever, and in 1 Corinthians, and he talks about love, and I think it's a great quote for all coaches to look at and see and emphasize with their team what love really is. You overlook people's inadequacies, you accept them as they are, you're committed to their improvement, you're committed to them as people. And so, you watch the interviews with the World Series champions or the Super Bowl champions, they always talk about how they love their teammates. And, not all teams love each other. And
that's true.
so that's where you start to fall apart. When you lose sight of that, you lose focus on what your overall goals are and your objectives are. So, if you can preach that to your kids and get them to buy into that idea of loving each other, and as a coach, you have to show that love for your kids. I think that's where it all starts.
Coach, also we've got this crazy coronavirus COVID-19 situation going on in the world. And we're all trying to figure out how to best handle it. So if you were a head coach right now, how would you, navigate this whole situation and try to figure out how to get your team ready?
Well, it's tough because, all the kids are going to want to play. I know the kids are working hard in off season on their own. Those kids that are dedicated, are working out and doing what they can to improve themselves individually, both at home with weights and, they're getting instruction from their coaches online and that type of thing. So you'd have to keep the kids engaged online, and you'd have to keep them optimistic about the season and what's going to happen and what type of team you can have. The coaches that can do that the best when things do come back, if they do come back, are going to be the most successful. Right now, I mean, it's just rolling the dice. Who knows? I mean, we don't know if we're going to have school. It would be very difficult for me to imagine if you don't have in-classroom school that you're going to have football on the field.
Yeah.
So there's so much gray area, foggy area out there that kids are having to deal with. It's unfortunate, those kids that were seniors that lost their spring sports season.
Oh, yeah.
And now, and you can't, any kid that's coming up, whether he's a sophomore, junior, or senior, I mean, all of those years are important to your development. And, hopefully we can get back to some type of normal soon. It's a difficult question. You'd have to be engaged with your players and make sure they were working out and staying optimistic. But that's a difficult task right now with the way that things are going, for sure.
First off, I want to say thank you so much for your time and sharing, all the wisdom and knowledge you've had throughout your career. So you've been successful for a long time, 43 years, as we said earlier. Who would you like to thank the most for supporting you throughout your coaching career?
Well, the first one I have to say is my wife. I've been married for 40 years, and she's always been great and supportive, and you have to have that as a coach. I've known coaches that haven't had that, and it just makes it very difficult.
Oh, yeah.
Fortunately, her dad was a coach and a principal and that type of thing, so she understood through all of these years, my wife Ann. And then, all of the coaches that I had from high school, my grade school coach, Jim McMahon, to my high school coach, Russ Nelson, to my college coaches, Rudy Samea, Frank Novak, and Ollie Dodge, and then so many guys that I worked with and for, and that worked with me on my staffs, just tremendous people throughout the years. I was fortunate to have Randy Long on my staff. Troy Gaston, who was a great friend and still is, coach with me, won the state championship at South Neck as a girls basketball coach. And, so many people that you don't make it on your own. You don't make it without great support around you. And, I could go through each staff that I was ever on and talk about particular individuals on those staffs. Larry Vanderhayden, who was at Clemson for many years, was a big help to me in my career. And, Coach Ford, when he was at Clemson, and, Warren Clawiter, who was our head coach at Catawba College, and just on and on, the list goes on and on. A bunch of great people and administrators that I've had throughout the years. Teresa Hopkins, who was at Butler, and Joel Ritchie, who was at Butler, and Ken Wells, who was at South Neck, and Betty Riddle, who was at South Neck and hired me there. Bill Rogers, who was our AD at Providence Day, and many great people that I've had as that have supported me and helped you to be successful. You don't do it without a complete team of administrators, coaches, parents, players. It takes everybody to be going in the same direction to be successful. When you get a faction that tears off of that, it can tear you apart in a hurry.
Well said, Coach. Well said. Once again, I'd like to thank you so much for your time today. This was awesome, and I can't wait to share this, with all the people that you've encountered and, gone against, and players you coached throughout the years.
Well, Matt, thank you very much, and thank you for what you do for high school sports in Charlotte, and there's a lot of great things coming up. Sam Griner is going over there to West Charlotte. He's my good. He played for me at Butler, and also over there as the basketball coach is Jacoby Davis, who played football for me at South Net.
Nice.
And he does a great job. So I'm a West Charlotte fan now, and I'm looking forward to the upcoming season. But I'll be following you and all of your reports and how the year goes, and all of these great kids in Charlotte, watching them to see they do great things as they go on to college.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Coach, once again.
Thank you, Matt.